Welcome back to Gale Force Wins Season 5.
Color, sir? Very good! Make it still! Pipe it still! Carry on. Very good! Pipe the carry on! Color party, turning inboard, yes. Fist!
Okay.
Well, I'm Allan Dale from Gale Force Wins, and I want to tell you I am in a very, very special place today with a very special and important conversation for the country of Canada. And I want to tell you, I'm beaming with pride right now where I'm standing, and I don't want to spoil where all of this is, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation. And on that note, I'm going to ask you, sir, to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where we are, and then we're going to get right into the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan, and welcome aboard the HMCS Sackville. HMCS Sackville is Canada's naval memorial. It is owned and operated by the Canadian Naval Memorial Trust. We're here in downtown Halifax, tied up right next to the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, and we are here to represent and tell the story of the Canadians who served during the Battle of the Atlantic in World War II.
Greg, I can't wait to dive into it. I mean, this is a very special place, but before we get into this special place and everything about this incredible ship and the people that served on it and continue to serve in many respects, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about Greg. What's your background? Where do you come from? And what makes you tick?
Okay, well, my father was in the Navy, and one of his brothers was also in the Navy, and his other brother was in the PPCLI infantry. My father was a carrier pilot who flew off the HMCS Magnificent and the HMCS Bonaventure, our two aircraft carriers. And he served right up until 1986. My brother and I, we were the two kids. My brother served in the Air Force and was a Sea King navigator and had a very successful career, retiring as a colonel. I served in the Royal Canadian Navy for 28 years. I retired in 2000. During my career, I was fully qualified as an engineer in the steam frigates. And also, I then transferred over to Oberon-class submarines. And I served as the engineering officer of HMS Osiris and HMS Opossum while on exchange with the Royal Navy. And then came back here and was engineering officer of the HMCS Okanagan. From there, I transferred to the Ship Repair Unit Atlantic, which is now called the Fleet Maintenance Facility. And I was in charge of submarine refits in the Ship Repair Unit. And then in 1987, with Perrin Beatty's White Paper on Defense, which announced that Canada was going to acquire 12 nuclear submarines, I got yanked out at 1 week's notice, sent up to Royal Military College in Kingston to do a master's in nuclear engineering. I was about 6 weeks from graduation, I think, when the program was canceled by the Mulroney government, and that was about as far as I got in my nuclear career.
Right. Wow.
I then went to headquarters and spent the rest of my career sailing a desk. I had a brief sojourn as the life cycle maintenance manager for gearing, shafting, and propellers. And then my final 7 years in the Canadian Navy were working in technical intelligence. So I was 5 years as head of naval technical intelligence, and then 2 years as head of technical intelligence in the Canadian Forces.
Great, what a career. And not only that, what a family. Here's our paths have an intersection, interestingly enough, and that is, Greg, while you were up studying nuclear engineering, I guess I would have been on the submarine officers course, and my class was the first ones that were scheduled to go to France to receive our training in the nuclear submarines, and it was canceled, and of course we never quite got there. So that's where our paths crossed for sure. Greg, it sounds to me like there was a deep naval history in your family, including your brother too. Time on Sea Kings. I mean, you might as well been in the Navy.
Yes.
Talk to me what it was like growing up with Dad flying off aircraft carriers and that whole naval influence in your life.
Well, it was just normal.
Yeah.
I mean, Dad being in the Navy and being a pilot, of course, I was very proud of him. In the 64 to 66, as part of his normal rotation in the Fleet Air Arm at the time, Dad went to a surface ship for a posting, and he was posted to HMCS Haida. And so he rode Haida for her last 2 years before paying off. He was the communications officer on board. And I can remember as a young kid, you know, Mom would throw, when Dad was going down to the ship for the weekend, Mom would say, take the kids with you. And, you know, Haida was basically a play structure for us. So we'd run around on the upper decks and basically used it exactly as that, a play structure. So, you know, the Navy has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. And I always wanted to join up. Of course, I wanted to fly, but had bad vision, so I couldn't do that. And ended up in the Navy and ended up as a marine engineer, and it's done me very well.
Talk to me a little bit about your academic journey. Where did you go to school, and how was that for you?
I was an ROTP student, which meant that I was under a full scholarship from the Government of Canada. I did not get selected for Royal Military College, so I had to make do with being an ROTP student going to Dalhousie University.
Okay.
So I didn't have to do all the rigorous drill and et cetera, et cetera. So I think I had the best.
You had the best deal, eh?
Best deal,
Yeah.
completely. So I did my undergraduate at Dal, and then went on to do my training out on the West Coast. Eventually it was about 10 years after graduation when I went to RMC to do my master's. And one thing I found is after working for 10 years, I was much more academically motivated when I went back for my master's. And I would recommend to anybody to take a gap year between high school and university, except for my own kids. I would, you know, I insisted that they go right to university.
You know, that, Greg, that ROTP program, of course, still exists today.
Yes.
I mean, what an incredible
Absolutely.
offering to, and not only the ROTP program, but they have an equivalent for NCMs, right?
Yes.
The STEP programs and things like that. Like, what an incredible offering from our country to educate people in that way.
Yes. And, you know, the forces have gone through some rough times, keeping, you know, mainly because we didn't have enough ships to keep people at sea, so the sailors didn't get enough sea time, or else they got way too much sea time. But I think right now the Canadian Navy is starting on the cycle of rebirth. We've got the new ships started construction just down the harbor a ways here. And we've got the submarines coming, and we've got a new corvette program coming. So I think now would be a very interesting time for young people to join the Navy, men and women. It's a perfectly valid and interesting career, and I personally would recommend joining the Navy to any young person. You get responsibility early, and you get to see the world.
You know, Greg, it's funny how you so eloquently described the cycles that the Navy goes through. And, you know, back when you joined, the future wasn't that bright, old steamships and things like that. But if you look at today, you're so right. I mean, submarines on the rise, and Canadian surface combatant, Arctic offshore patrol vessels, AI and technology and industry leaning in, and, you know, there's so much to be excited for in the Navy.
Absolutely. And the Canadian Navy is a very technical profession. The modern ships are essentially big video games.
Yeah.
And we need people that are highly technically trained and skilled. And it's a new and exciting time.
But Greg, there's one thing, and I'm sure you can speak to this, and that is that it's all well and good to have great ships and great technology and all of that kind of stuff, but boy, there's something about the people in the Navy. There's something about the friends you make, along the way. And talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, my best friend is one of my shipmates, and that's a guy I sailed in submarines with in the UK. We've remained connected since I came back in 1985 from my exchange, and we still have routine calls where we stay in touch with each other over the computer line, and we're back and forth visiting. And the Navy, the friendships you make in the Navy are long and sturdy.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's a common thing that when you go through periods that are challenging, and the Navy life can be challenging at times in very interesting ways, and that brings you together, and much more so than in just a normal civilian work.
Yeah.
I think.
Which is a nice way to sort of break into the next part of the conversation. Navy life can be challenging, and you rely on one another as you sort of go through your career in the Navy, and you make friendships for life indeed. Imagine what it was like on here.
This is, I think, the biggest message that people can get from coming to visit the Sackville. It gives an appreciation of what the sailors, the men who served during the Battle of the Atlantic, what they went through. It was a very Canadian war. It wasn't Hollywood. It wasn't flashy. It was not particularly well funded. Money during a war was very tight. These particular ships, which were Canada's Navy during the war, we started with 11 ships, 11 warships. By the end of the war, we had over 340, and we're the fourth largest Navy in the world by number of hulls, but ours were all small. We only had 2 ships larger than a destroyer. As Churchill described the Flower-class corvettes, they were the cheap and nasties. They were designed to be built quickly and at the lowest possible cost because they needed hulls out there to escort the convoys to defend against the U-boats. So as you see us here, we're standing on the bridge. This is where pretty much everybody in the crew had to serve time up here on the bridge, unless they were the cook or working in the boiler room and the engine room and the sick bay attendant. Other than that, pretty much everybody cycled through in watches up here, and you're only seeing half of it now, but it's totally exposed to the weather.
Yeah.
And in February in the North Atlantic, the weather's not renowned for being very good.
Right.
Most of the upper deck would have been swept with waves. These ships would have been enormously uncomfortable in a sea. They bobbed about. They're small and light. The crew slept in hammocks, in crowded mess decks. Every time they opened the door to the mess deck, there was a good chance there'd be a wave coming in with them. That's where they ate all their meals. The sailors would be coming up with a bucket, an insulated bucket with a lid on it, with the food in it, and then they'd dish it out on all the plates, and that's where they'd wash up and everything. All done in that steaming, sweaty, smelly mess deck. And yet, the morale of those guys was, by all accounts, very high.
How many crew would have been on board in the height of the war?
So at the start of the war, the crew of the Sackville would have been about 68. By the end of the war, some of the Flower-class corvettes were up to 103, because as they brought in improved technology, things like the radars, the ASDIC, which is what they called sonar at the time, improved weapon systems, they also needed the people to maintain those, so it got more and more crowded. Now, during the war, in a major refit in the spring of 1944 in Galveston, Texas, of all places, Sackville received the major extension where they pushed her forecastle back, which gave another mess deck for the sailors, and that would have made it much more comfortable. Mm-hmm. It also enclosed more of the areas that used to be exposed to the weather. So a big step up in comfort. However, Sackville escorted 30 convoys across the Atlantic during the war.
All out of Halifax?
No, some out of St. John's,
okay.
and it was a mix, some out of Sydney. But of all of those convoys, in this configuration where she looks today, the more comfortable version, more capable version, she only did one convoy in that version.
Okay.
29 of them were in the old,
The old way.
the tough way, you know, where your parents tell your
Yeah.
kids, you know, we had to walk back in school uphill both
Uphill
ways.
both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that truly was the way for the sailors and the Sackville.
Greg, if you can, talk to me what it must have been like to be on a convoy run on the ship.
I think most of the time it would have been tedious boredom and discomfort. The weather was always going to be an issue, and also the tension and the responsibility, because the job of the escorts was to defend the merchant ships in the convoy from the attacking U-boats. Most of the time the U-boats would attack at night because their preferred mode of attack was to come in on the surface and fire their torpedoes, because it was much easier for them to do a torpedo firing solution when they were on the surface. It's very hard to do that from a periscope, and particularly in those days. So a submarine on the surface in the night is very difficult to see, particularly those World War II U-boats were small, and they'd be painted black or dark gray, and the lookouts would have had to be on constant hyper alert, trying to spot those in the dark in bad conditions with binoculars that would be getting rained on or snowed
Almost
on.
impossible.
And,
It's almost impossible the way you describe it.
yeah, and it was really challenging. The radar that certainly the Sackville had was not great. She didn't get improved radar until that 1944 refit.
Right.
And it was really, it must have been incredibly tense for the lookouts.
Right.
All the time knowing that if they screwed up, some merchant ship was going to get torpedoed and people were going to be killed.
Right.
You know, it must have been a real responsibility to bear.
And these men, all men back then, of course, these men, I mean, they were not seasoned sailors, many of them, right?
No.
They'd come from all parts of Canada.
13 weeks before they were standing here as a lookout, they could have been pushing a cow around a farm in Saskatchewan,
Right.
you know, because once they volunteered, they got 12 weeks of training at Cornwallis, and then it was here and then pushed into a ship because they needed people as quick as they were coming out of the scheme. And off they went.
You mentioned Saskatchewan there, boy. I want to tell you, back in the day, and even still today, those Prairie Sailors are something else.
Oh, well, yeah, I've heard that the majority of the volunteers for the Navy were coming from the prairies, or
Right.
apparently the majority of the people coming from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland were all going to the Army.
Yeah.
So the other guy's grass looks greener, I think.
Right. Well, they were probably looking out their window every night at home saying, I'm not going out there.
Yeah, my father and you know, he grew up in Regina, and he and his brother joined the Navy. So
Yeah. Now, you would have met men that had served on Sackville over your time.
I have had the honor of meeting a few.
Yeah. Tell me about them.
Well, I very limited exposure to them, and we gave them great respect, and you know, they obviously really appreciated being able to come down to Sackville. We had a gentleman who came over from England who visited the ship. He was 99 years old, and he came over from England, and he walked through the whole ship, you know, climbed down into the boiler room, and he was just nimble. They took him back to the quarterdeck at the end, and he asked for a few minutes to just stand there with his memories and,
Right.
you know, pay homage to his lost comrades. And the other thing that I find that's very moving for me personally, because I've had the real experience with this, is taking through people whose parents
Right.
served in the corvettes, and indeed in Sackville. I've taken a couple of people through whose parents were actually in Sackville's crew during the war, and it's always really emotional. You know,
Yeah.
when they see where their father worked, when they find their father's name on the watch and station bill,
Yeah.
and they really, really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm so glad that we get to do that.
And I bet, you know, those type of things probably happen randomly, where they're walking up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And say, I think my granddad served on there. What must that be like when that happens for you or all these great people that work on that? When that moment happens, tell me about that.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
When we find out, the majority of the time we find out when they come on board and they just mention casually, my father, grandfather, whatever, served. And we immediately go to hyper mode. Okay, let's find out more about this. What did he do? And we try and give them a tailored tour specifically to help enjoy that. And everybody, every one of the trustee guides on here can tell a story like that, I'm sure. And they're always really moving and really emotional.
You're an engineering officer, so the next question is going to be easy for you. So give me the stats on the ship, the length and the weight and all of that.
So she's not a big ship. She's 205 feet long. She only weighed 950 tons, 33-foot beam. So they were based on the design of a mine hunting ship, not a mine hunting, pardon me, whale hunting ship.
Okay.
That was being produced in England in 1938, and the British Admiralty selected that design and turned it into this coastal patrol vessel. The maximum speed was only 16.5 knots, which is like 30 kilometers an hour, and just for context, the U-boats on the surface could go about 21 knots, so significantly faster. She had a very minimal armament, a 4-inch gun forward. Initially, for most of the war, Sackville had twin Lewis guns, which were a 303, very light machine gun, bridge wings, and a 40 millimeter pom-pom gun, called because when they fired it goes pom 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 pom. Those weapons were originally designed to be for anti-aircraft use. However, in the cross-Atlantic convoys, aircraft were not really a threat. The Germans had few aircraft that had the range to reach the convoys, and that was more those escorts that did serve on the Mediterranean convoys and then on the Murmansk convoys. But the machine guns and the pom-poms were effective against a surface submarine. Sackville had 3 engagements with submarines in a 24-hour period. All of them were with surface submarines. And 2 of those 3 were in heavy fog. And it was, by the time they saw the submarine, it was within a couple of 100 yards. And everything was happening very quickly. They did manage to hit one submarine several times with the 4-inch gun, including a hit right at the base of the conning tower. They thought they'd sunk her, but later, after the war, in checking the records of the U-boat service, they found that they just heavily damaged it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 60 crew on board?
Yes.
Give me a little bit of a breakdown of the crew. How many officers, how many enlisted, how many cooks, how many engineers and the like?
Well, there would have been 6 or 7 officers, counting the commanding officer. There were 12 chiefs and petty officers. Primarily, most of them were the technical side, operating the boilers and the engine. And the remainder were the junior rates. And one thing that's really important, almost all of the crews in these small ships and the corvettes were not regular Navy. They were not the big ship Navy, the guys who had been in the Navy before the war.
Yeah.
They were almost entirely Royal Canadian Navy Voluntary Reserve, who you could tell because the stripes on their sleeve were wavy. So they were the Wavy Navy. And the Battle of the Atlantic was such a Canadian war because basically it was citizens who enlisted at the time of war. They signed up for a hostilities-only engagement. They went and they did their thing and they served their country honorably under these horrible conditions. And then once the war ended, they're out of there.
Back home.
Yeah. So
How many of Canadians would have served that way, do you feel?
Okay, so at the start of the war, there were 1,800 in the Royal Canadian Navy. In total, about no, just over 200,000 served during the war. And yeah, so it was
200,000 people have a connection to our Navy.
Yes. And we suffered about 2,000 losses, sailors killed during the war.
Yeah.
We lost 13 warships, and Canada was definitely fully committed.
Yeah, we did our bit, as they say.
We did our bit, and we established a reputation as being a small ship and an anti-submarine warfare navy, and we were the only the only country other than the United States and England to have a major command, which was the Western Atlantic Command.
Greg, how many corvettes were built?
In total, of the Flower-class corvettes, 274 were built during the war. You'll see sometimes online, you'll find the number 294. So I took the time to go through every single named corvette. I tracked it, doing where they were built, when they were launched, when they were decommissioned. And the discrepancy came because 20 of the corvettes were built and then transferred to the U.S. Navy.
Okay.
And when they were transferred to the U.S. Navy, they were given a new name. And that's what led to the confusion. So 274 built during the war. Of those, 122 were built in Canada. And there was actually 123 started. One was not finished because it was far enough in the war that they could tell that they didn't need any more of the corvettes. They wanted more capable ships.
And which yards built them?
They were built in Canada in 12 different yards, right from St. John, New Brunswick, all the way over to Esquimalt in British Columbia.
Is that right?
Yeah, and along the St. Lawrence River, in the Great Lakes, and then Vancouver and Esquimalt. Yeah, it was truly a national commitment. The corvettes were designed so that they could be built in small yards, because the bigger yards that had already been building capable ships, they wanted them free to be able to build things like destroyers, frigates, and the higher end things. So the corvettes were built in what had been very small shipyards, many of them building just wooden vessels, and it was a learning experience right across the country.
Well, you know, it's funny, here we are again, we're talking about shipbuilding and all of this stuff. What a deep history we have with building ships.
We do.
From coast to coast to coast. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. And again, we're getting into this again. However, the ships of today, you can't just go and build them in small shipyards.
Right, yeah.
It requires a significant investment in infrastructure and technology to build the ships we want now. So,
Hey, Greg, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, you come on board this ship, it's impressive, the history is impressive, the way that this has impacted our country is incredible in so many ways. But there's still people here. There's still people to talk to and people passionate about it, just like you. Talk to me about the team of people that keeps this place alive.
Well, we have 3 different categories of people that you'll meet when you visit the Sackville. One very key thing that we really, truly appreciate is the Royal Canadian Navy essentially loan us some active duty sailors during our open season when we're downtown in Halifax. I want to start by saying that we have 2 seasons. During the winter, right after Remembrance Day, we transfer the ship to the Royal Canadian Navy dockyard just down the harbor, and they hook us up to shore steam.
Okay.
And they provide us some maintenance during the winter. We get 1,000 hours of labor from the fleet maintenance facility, and we get some money for materials. That was a deal that was was donated by the Navy starting in 1985, and they maintained that to today, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah. And I bet they got to answer to somebody every year to keep that alive, right?
I'm sure
and I bet they do.
Yes, and it's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
What the other thing they do is they will always have some ships that are in maintenance or in a dry docking or whatever, and they have some staff that don't have a course to go to, so they're doing administrative stuff in the ship's office ashore, and they offer them a choice. Well, you can man the photocopier, or if you'd like, you could go and volunteer on board the HMCS Sackville. So we get a team of generally about 8 sailors who come, active duty sailors. They work on board. They work for our chief of the ship. Super great men and women who have done a fantastic job. So they help us, and they really keep us going, particularly in the shoulder season, because during the summer we hire Canada Summer Jobs students from high school or university. We give them some training, we give them a uniform of sorts, and they act as interpreters on board the ship. And many of those folks have been repeat visitors, or repeat interpreters, because they quite enjoy it. And that's again been crucial to our job. But the other one that I'm really proud of are our Trustee Guides. So in our trust, we have trustees, people who have become a trustee by applying and becoming a member of the trust. And many of those have volunteered to come down and work as guides during the season. So typically they will sign up for 1 or maybe 2 days a week. They get the training, to make sure that they know all the appropriate history, because some of these people have never served in the Navy.
Okay.
They're just people who think the Sackville is important, and our mission is an important mission. And we just love these people, and they are what bring the ship to life for many of our tour guides, or for many of our tourist visitors. And they tell the stories, and they do it in a very interesting and an entertaining fashion.
How do you keep the ship in, I guess the term would be Bristol fashion? How do you keep it looking so well? Is that the team of people, or does the Navy lean into that?
Oh, it's a combination.
Combination.
Yeah, so we do have 2 paid ship staff, the chief of the ship and the assistant chief of the ship. We also have a bunch of volunteers. We have outstanding volunteers who contribute to much of the upkeep that you see around us. Mm-hmm. The stuff that the Fleet Maintenance Unit or the Fleet Maintenance Facility provides, we focus on the big stuff that they need to do. Things like when there's welding, when there's real painting to be done. We need to get the Oerlikon guns into the workshop to have the paint stripped off and then refreshed, things like that. Mm-hmm. Replacing water lines and steam lines that have gotten deteriorated. And then every 7 or 8 years we do a docking, where we pull the ship out of the water, we clean the hull, we do the painting inside and out. So the Fleet Maintenance Facility does the heavy stuff, and our volunteers take care of all the little stuff that goes on during that 7-year interval.
Occasionally, I've seen a barber pole and things like that as it relates to the corvette. Give me a little bit of history on that. That's a thing that I don't think a lot of people understand.
Well, that was a tradition that started very informally. It was the 2nd Convoy Escort Group, which was a bunch of the Canadian ships that were operating out of St. John's, Newfoundland, effectively out of the Crow's Nest Club. And the captains got together under the senior captain, and they formed this escort group, and they started developing tactics and doctrine for when they were escorting these convoys. And the way they distinguished themselves was they painted this red and white diagonally striped marking, typically around the top of the funnel. Mm-hmm. You can see there.
Yeah.
And it was a signature of the 2nd Convoy Escort Group, which Sackville was one of the initial members of that group.
Wow.
And it was later adopted by the Royal Canadian Navy, and the 5th Destroyer Squadron took that on, taking on some of that good history and tradition of the RCN.
The color scheme. Talk to me about the color scheme of the ship.
Okay, it's pretty sexy. It's called the Dazzle Camouflage Scheme. These were developed to not, as some people might think, to make the ship harder to see. That wasn't the aim. The aim was that when a submarine is conducting a torpedo attack, they didn't have fancy computers then, and it was mainly done in the CO's head. And some of the key bits of information that the submarine captain needed were the course that the ship was sailing and also the speed.
Okay.
Those were 2 key things. Well, the dazzle camouflage scheme was designed to make it very difficult to estimate both of those characteristics, because it makes it look like the bow wave is in a different place, and the angles look really odd.
Yeah, very angular, isn't it?
Yeah, and it works. It's really hard to tell that.
Greg, does Sackville participate in any ceremonies with the Navy?
Absolutely. Every year for the Battle of Atlantic Sunday, which is the first Sunday in May, the Royal Canadian Navy, that's a big ceremony for them, and they conduct a memorial ceremony honoring those members of the RCN who have been lost in all of her conflicts. And that's conducted at the Sailors Memorial, which is in Point Pleasant Park at the south end of Halifax here. And part of that, since the Sackville has come back to life as a museum ship, is we go down with tug assist from the King's Harbour Master. They strap alongside us, and we go down and rest just off from the Sailors Memorial. So we provide a very solemn backdrop to that view, and we provide a backdrop for that ceremony. But even more importantly to us on board is we conduct internments of the ashes of veterans from the Navy, from Merchant Marine, even from other services if they request it, and we conduct essentially burials at sea. It's a very simple but a really moving ceremony.
I bet, yeah.
And it's done while we're out there off Point Pleasant. We do that for the Battle of Atlantic Sunday, and then we do it again in the fall. Just on the 18th of September, we went out and we had 12 people that we committed. And the families really, really appreciate that. Right. It's a very special occasion for them.
You know, this ship here would have seen many horizons.
Yes.
Many, many horizons. There's little doubt about that. Some rough, some not so rough, some beautiful, some we got to get through this day. What's on the horizon for her right now?
So, the Sackville is in a pretty good spot at the moment in many ways. In 2021, we did a dry docking where we put a second a layer of plating over the hull, because there were places in the hull where it was getting pretty thin, and there was a worry about having a major flooding event. So we put another layer of cladding on the outside, which will keep us good for a number of years. In our next docking, which will be in 2028 probably, hopefully, we're going to take some test samples out and determine what is actually happening and get a really good read of how long our hull will last. But we do know that we will have to replace the plating in the hull. So our interim dockings, which on the 7 or 8 year cycle, will cost us these days somewhere between $1 and $3 million, depending on how much work we have to do. And then the project to replace the hull, we're estimating that that's going to be between $15 and $25 million.
Okay.
And so those are things that are looming on the horizon.
Okay.
But from a day-to-day sustainment point of view, we make enough money just on contributions during the year that sustains the ship itself and the ship's staff. So while we are getting by on a day-to-day basis, we know that we have to start collecting and saving the money for the big jobs that are to come.
Just over the horizon. You know, there would have been many occasions on this ship through these voice pipes directly in front of us where the cry action stations would have been called, and people would have all had to rally to action. What would the rally to action right now be for Canadians on this ship? What would you tell them? How do they become a part of this? This class of ship, this ship touched so many people.
Absolutely.
How do those people become a part?
Well, if you have any interest in the Canadian Navy, the military history of Canada, just feel compassion and for those who served. One really good way to contribute would be to become a member of the trust. To become a member of the trust, you do not have to be ex-military. You do not have to be a family member. You just have to have an interest. You can join by going to our website, which is cnmt.ca, and we have a button there where you can join as a member. It's $75 a year, and you become eligible to attend various functions that we conduct during the year. You get informational newsletters, and you're contributing to a really good cause. By the way, the $75 you get a tax receipt for, or you have the option you become a life member for $1,000. And also when you visit that website, there's another big red button that says donate. We're always looking for anybody who would like to make a donation to the trust, which all goes directly to keeping the ship going. And as we say, preserving it in perpetuity. That is our aim.
Yeah.
And if you're a senior person in a corporation and are looking to provide sponsorship or, major donor opportunities, we'd love to talk to you.
Right. And I know that, it not only do, big corporations and stuff get sort of, the social responsibility of being engaged, but I know that you also host events. I mean, just a couple of nights ago, a brand new unicorn company in Canada, Kraken Robotics, held an event right on board the ship. Like, what a thing to do.
Absolutely.
As a corporation.
And what a venue. I mean, we do have the trustee mess down below, which started out as the original wardroom of the ship. However, we've taken out the cabins where the officers lived, and we've turned that whole space into a mess for the trustees. We've also, where number one boiler used to be, we've put a conference room in there, and those are linked. But the venue of the ship is absolutely unique. We offer it for anybody who wants to rent the ship for the event, and it provides a unique backdrop that can't be matched anywhere in the world, or anywhere in Canada, for sure.
100%. I mean, like, what an incredible venue to hold a function on, right? Particularly if you're a company that is somewhat connected to the Navy right now.
Absolutely. And Kraken Robotics, they saw this opportunity. They came to us. We put it together, the two teams working together. It was a fantastic event, and everybody who came really enjoyed it. We had the committee in the city, the Halifax Regional Municipality, that organized the Fleet Week. Mm-hmm. They had their closing reception on board, and again, enormously successful. That was 70 people.
Wow.
And everybody enjoyed very much having the opportunity to meet on the ship. So that's certainly an option.
So, Greg, not everybody, of course, can become a member and donate and all of that, but they can certainly visit.
They certainly can.
Everybody can come visit. How many visitors do you have a year normally?
We've had a peak of 45,000 in a year. This year, we look like we're probably going to be between 25,000 and 30,000. And we're working on expanding that. This year, we've just hired a paid person to help us with marketing and communication, and we're going to actively try and target attracting the attention of the cruise ship passengers, because mm-hmm. Halifax is becoming a major cruise destination. And we're looking to spread the love, because our aim is to tell the story, and the more people we can tell the story to, the better.
Greg, an incredible conversation. You have so much knowledge of this ship. What would in 2 or 3 sentences, what would be the one thing that Canadians should know about HMCS Sackville, and why they should come see it, and more importantly, why they should be a part of it? What is that in 2 or 3 sentences? What would that be?
I think it would give everybody a real appreciation for what it was like for the average person in Canada. It would give you a much better appreciation of the people who served during the war, and it would give you a sense of what Canada is doing on a world stage, which started back during the war and continues to today, and how we are contributing to global peace.
Greg, an absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. Thank you. Thank you for you and the entire team for keeping Sackville in the shape that she's in and presenting her so well to the world, not just Canadians, but the entire world. You're doing a great job, and thanks to our friends in the Canadian Navy for leaning in to help a little bit along the way. But I got to tell you, this is a true Canadian gem that we're stood on.
It absolutely is, and it's entirely due to the staff and the trustees and the Royal Canadian Navy, and all of our trustees and the people who contribute. And we love them all. Come on down.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you inviting us on board.
I'll appreciate having you on board. Thank you very much, Allan.
Thank you. Ring off main engines.
Finished with main engine.
Well, I'm Allan Dale from Gale Force Wins, and I am on board HMCS Sackville in beautiful downtown Halifax, Nova Scotia. What an incredible historical place I'm in. What nautical heritage surrounds me. But more important than that are the people that are here today, and I can't wait to meet them. And so on that note, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about who you are.
I'm Sailor First Class Henderson. I'm a reservist with the Royal Canadian Navy. I spent this summer down here on Sackville, which has been a nice change of pace from the fleet a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've been spending the last 6 years on Harry DeWolf. I commissioned her and did that journey all the way through. It's been a venture of a lifetime, honestly.
So were you christened Sailor First Class, or do you have a first name?
No, my first name is Andrew.
Okay,
actually,
Andrew.
No one uses that much anymore, you know?
Andrew, tell me a little bit about what it's like being in the Navy right now.
Right now, it's a great opportunity to be in the Navy because with everything that's been going on over the last few years, we're adopting a lot more technology. We're adopting a lot more different tactics. We brought in a completely new class of ship. And we're, in the next 10 years, going to bring in another class of new warfighters.
Andrew, what do you do in the Navy?
I'm a bosun, so ropes, boats, and guns is my main passions. Mostly, I like to stay in the boats as much as possible, though.
And Andrew, where are you from originally?
I'm actually from a small town called Two Hills in Alberta.
Two Hills, Alberta.
Yeah, and then grew up most of my childhood in Edmonton.
Wow.
Decided to follow the footsteps of the Prairie Sailors that sailed Sackville and the flyer classes.
Andrew, when you were growing up out there in Alberta,
Yeah.
what was it about the Navy? Did you know much about the Navy?
I actually did. I'm fortunate enough to be from a very large military family.
Okay.
My uncle, he did more torpedo boats in the Second World War.
Okay.
So he jumped the Atlantic in one of those, and those stories, I was hooked. He was a bosun, so I was like, man, I got to follow in those footsteps, right?
Okay. So 10 years ago, you walk into the recruiting center and say, the Navy's for me and I want to be a bosun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me about these new ships. What are they like?
Oh, they're amazing. The quality of life. So as a junior ranks member, I'm used to sleeping in a 17, 20 person room, mess, of course.
Yeah.
And on Harry DeWolf, I have 6 people in there. Wow. I have my own heads and wash place attached to my cabin.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're in the high Arctic. We got faster internet than I have down here in Halifax. It's the quality of life is above and beyond nowadays.
Andrew, talk to me about what it's like being up in the Arctic.
Oh, beautiful. Like nothing else in the world. It feels like you're on a different planet, to be honest. And then you come into these small communities, and they're very passionate people. They all have amazing stories to share and everything like that, and they're so welcoming.
Yeah.
Right? They'll give you the shirt off their backs if you need it and everything like that. So seeing that in these small, isolated communities is amazing to see.
And where else have you sailed, Andrew?
Pretty much every continent at this point, all that kind of stuff. I think the biggest one that comes into mind was my deployment to the South China Sea. That was my first deployment, and really cut my teeth in the Navy on that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk to me about being a bosun.
Oh, well,
what's that like?
It's great. How do you get a better job in the Navy than bosun, right?
Right.
You do everything from working on the deck. Basic leadership is applied from the ordinary seaman level. The S1 or S3 level, all the way up to your POs and everything like that. Right. So you get a lead from the front and everything. And then who doesn't like jumping in boats and getting a little wet, right?
Yeah. Are you sure you're not a recruiter, Andrew? Because you sound pretty good, man.
I feel like they're going to throw me in recruiting anytime, you know?
Is that right? I think they should. So I guess on that note, what would you tell somebody who's interested in a career, interested in doing something different in their life? What would your elevator pitch be for the Navy?
Well, honestly, right now we have this amazing program called the Naval Experience Program. You can't get a better start in the Navy than that. You try out every single job. It's kind of a year. At the end of that, then you could decide your commitment. It's a program that I really wish was kicking around when I first joined in. I'd probably still be a bosun because it is the best trade, but getting a little experience with everything else is amazing. And just like that 1 year, who knows, to fly out to Hawaii, to fly out to Europe, to come do a couple trips with us and everything. So that's probably your best bet to like start out in the Navy right now.
Right.
Yeah. Or, the reserve is also a great way to kind of dip your toes in if you're not 100% sure. Yeah. Right. You can do weekends and you can come out for the summers, do a little bit of sailing there, that kind of thing.
Talk to me, why did you put your hand up to be a part of this, be part of Sackville?
Oh, that's a pretty easy one, to be honest. It's the history that's here.
Right.
Sharing our Royal Canadian Naval story with people is very important. Not enough people in Canada understand the history and what these ships did for Canada.
Right.
Yeah, so just to be able to be part of that and everything, and also to maintain her, painting her, grinding down the rust and everything like that, it's an honor. Truly.
Wow.
Yeah.
An absolute pleasure being in conversation with you.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thank you so
very much. Well, I'm Allan Dale from Gale Force Wins in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia, on one of the most historical things on this waterfront, and that is His Majesty's Canadian ship Sackville. I want to tell you what a pleasure it is to be on board this piece of Canadian history, but more importantly than that, what a pleasure it is to talk to some of the people that work here from day to day. And on that note, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do.
I am Sailor First Class Long, and I am a bosun in the Royal Canadian Navy.
Do you have another name other than Sailor First Class?
Ashley.
Ashley, where are you from?
Anakin-ish.
Okay, talk to me about the Navy. Why did you join the Navy, Ashley?
I joined the Navy to travel. I knew there was a good chance I'd stay in the Maritimes,
Yeah.
being from here. And yeah,
And what do you do in the Navy?
a bosun.
You're a bosun?
Yep.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the life of a bosun in the Navy.
Well, we specialize in small arms. We drive the Ribs and Zodiacs.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
What ships were you on?
I started off on St. John's, then I went to Ville de Quebec.
Okay.
A short stint on Montreal.
Okay, so you were all frigate time.
Yep.
Talk to me about what life is like on a frigate for a bosun.
Oh, it's, you get up, you stand your duty watch, you get any work done that needs to get done throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people are on there?
250-ish.
What's that like? What's it like sort of living in a tin box with 250 people?
I don't mind it, honestly. It's
Yeah.
it's a little crowded sometimes, but you have your own rack, so you have
Yeah.
your own space if you need to.
Are you able to find privacy and sort of that, or do you just embrace the camaraderie of it all?
50-50, I think.
Yeah.
You can always go find somewhere to close the door if you need to.
Right.
You need a minute, but it's also good to be around
Yeah.
people, I think. You all know what we're going through and support each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would you put your hand up to volunteer to come down and be a part of the Sackville? What did that mean to you?
I love the Sackville.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's like it is. It is a big part of the history, and I think maintaining it and keeping it in the water is very important, and sharing the history. And
Right.
yeah,
You would have come down here as a kid and seen Sackville, eh?
yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
Mom took us down.
Your
Yeah.
mom took you down to see it, and here you are, part of it. When you interact with people that walk by, it must be pretty cool to tell them the story of this.
Yeah, some people are really fascinated. The amount of people that we have come down here whose father or grandfather served on the ship, and being able to show them like, oh,
Yeah.
this is where you would have worked, and this is how we would have lived. It's
Ashley, what's it feel like at that moment when you meet somebody whose relative served on that very ship? That must be kind of cool when that connection is made.
It is cool. Actually, just yesterday we had somebody come on board, and we found his dad's picture on the ship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's Ashley Long, Royal Canadian Navy. I want to tell you, it's the kind of people like this that make our nation tick, and I'm so happy to meet them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's Gale Force Wins, WINS.com.